Isn't all English the same? This episode, a conversation with professional editor and proofreader Eve Merrier.
The most important thing is for authors to read their own manuscript several times, not just get to the end, type the end, and feel like that's it, I'll send it off. Like, look at it, think about it, put it away, take it out, read it, think about it again. And then when you feel like you've done what you can to it, send it to me.
I'm Chris Well, and this is DIY Author. You're an author. Maybe you're taking the traditional route. Maybe you've chosen an independent path. Or maybe you want the best of both worlds. Wherever you want to go as a writer, DIY Author is here to help you on your journey with advice, encouragement, and practical tips. Because do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone. Welcome to DIY Author. I'm your host, Chris Well. Our guest this episode is Eve Merrier. She's a professional editor and proofreader who works with independent authors and also shares grammar tips on social media. Coming up, we discuss what authors should know about editors, recommended tools for editing, and the intricacies separating UK, US, and Australian English. But first, our latest author tip comes from author and music producer Matt Brownlowy, author of Man of Action, the latest August Adams adventure. Take it away, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Brownlowy, author of the thrillers Illuminated and House of Wolves, featuring August Adams. You can find me online at mattbrownlowy.com. Don't worry about the spelling. I'm sure that Google can help you find it. And you can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received came from a friend of mine in the music business. He said that as an early musician, he went to college and got all the proper training and understood all of the theory, but that every time he went into the studio, he was amazed at these musicians who knew none of the theory, but would blow everyone's minds with their performances. And he said that's what he wanted to go after as he moved from being a musician to being an author. He wanted to be like that guy, the person who sat behind the drum kit or picked up a guitar and just played with raw power and passion and emotion. And he said that's what you should go for too. And I just thought it was a great piece of advice. I've definitely read plenty of books about plotting and theory and everything like that. And I feel like it's deepened my understanding of the craft. But the longer I do it, the more I understand that what will relate to the audience the most, what people most want to hear from me, what will most come out in terms of my voice and my ability to convey a great story is just that raw passion. So every time I sit behind a keyboard and try and take whatever crazy stories in my head and put it on the page, my biggest desire is to just be like that drummer who picks up the drumsticks, doesn't know any of the theory, but tries to make that performance into something mind-blowing and memorable.
That was Matt Brownlowy. Find him online at mattbrownlowy.com. That's mattbrownleewe.com. If you have feedback or something to share, there are all kinds of ways to contact us. You can leave a voice message or email us through DIYauthor.com/tips. That's TIPS. You can also email us at info@DIYauthor.com, or you can just go to DIYauthor.com and look for our contact page. And now my interview with editor Eve Merrier. And now I'm speaking with Eve from eveproofreads.com. Welcome, Eve.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So the website is eveproofreads.com, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And you describe yourself as a proofreader and an editor. What is the range of the editorial services that you offer?
Well, I do straightforward proofreading, which is spelling, grammar, punctuation, consistency, just basically cleaning up the manuscript. And then I do editing, which is all of those things, but with the addition of looking at style, flow, awkward sentences, things like overall structure, plot, paragraphing, pace, things like that. And I also do manuscript reviews, which is without the line editing and proofing, just sort of commenting on the book as a whole, like the plot, character, construction, development, and style, and things like that. So 3 different levels.
How were you introduced to books and reading?
I've always loved reading. My parents really encouraged me to read. They took me to the library, like, all my life. And we had this amazing library in my hometown, which was in this big old Gothic building that had stars on the ceiling. And it just seemed like the most magical place in the world to me, like full of stories. So that's where my love started.
And then right before we started the interview, you mentioned that you work at a library. What all do you do with the library?
Oh, I do all sorts at the library, but a lot of it involves running events, doing things with children, story time, and things like promoting the reading and library on Twitter and doing the social media side of things, which I've learned through doing the proofreads.com thing.
And how did you become a professional editor?
Well, during my degree at university, I was a student mentor, and that involved proofreading essays for students. And then I really enjoyed the process of that and going through the minutiae of grammar and really learning that in detail. So after I graduated, I decided to combine that with my love of books and use both skills together. And I did a course, and then I set up the website.
I noticed on your website you list your qualifications, and you mention like you have an advanced certificate in proofreading, and obviously obviously a certificate in proofreading, I understand why, but but the way you described it, there was like a distinction of like where it was from or what you went through for that. And then you mentioned a course in critical reading, which I trust you that that's important, but I'm wondering how that relates to this is why you're a good editor.
Well, the course in critical reading specifically taught me different critical approaches to reading novels. So it also taught me about the literary techniques like voice, narrative consistency, perspectives, devices, sort of the real how literature works and how to tell a good story. So things like how to do dramatic irony convincingly, different ways to introduce character. The course was based on all the classic novels. So it's critical in the sense of essential and critical in the sense of criticism. So I learned how to do an in-depth critique based on essential classic novels written by the greats. So it was important to me in learning to be a better editor.
Let's see. Oh, you mentioned you're an expert in UK English, and then you made the distinction, which once you say it, it's like, oh, of course, there are differences between how English is spoken and written in the United Kingdom and in America and Australia. So I'm wondering, first of all, about the challenges of having to transition from, I'm editing for this one versus that one, and whether authors should think about doing different editions for those three audiences.
Yeah, I do try not to do more than one style in the same day. I like to immerse myself in one type of English or another. But once I'm sort of in it, I'm quite happy. I don't find it too much of a challenge. Obviously, UK English comes more naturally. It's my first language. But I use online dictionaries. I use different online sources to check for colloquialisms and things I might not immediately know that a native would. But I really enjoy it. I really find it fascinating that from one single root, these different forms of language have evolved. So in an etymology perspective, it's really interesting working all three. But in terms of authors writing in the different forms, I don't really think there's a need because English speakers can mostly understand each other. And I think it gives more of a sense of place and character and of the author if it's kept in its original dialect.
Have you ever had an example of a client who maybe it was a British author who set the book in America, and so, and I'm trying to think of the differences, like they said, the guy went on the lift, and you said, well, no, over there they call it elevator. Yeah. Does that happen?
Yeah, there are sort of themes that are set in England, in particular, in American works that I've noticed changes in. For example, a supposedly English character said, that's just down the block. Now, we wouldn't say that. We don't have blocks. We'd say that's just down the road or that's just down the street. And it's noticing those little differences and making it feel genuine.
Now, you also share grammar tips and book reviews and other literary thinkings on, you have a blog, you have a Google Plus account, you have Facebook. I'm wondering, how much of that is you staying connected to people who already know you, and how much of that do you ever get new clients who said, I was reading your grammar tips on Facebook, I need to hire you? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, I have actually had people hire me, more often readers of the blog. I think it's a mix of existing clients, but originally in the beginning, all I had was the website, the Facebook, no followers on either. So In essence, everyone is a client that I found from somewhere on the internet, just followed the blog or found a post. But yeah, a lot of it's staying in touch as well. That's really important to me. I've met some amazing authors, and it's really nice to keep the contact with them.
Are there any particular kinds or genres of books or authors that you specialize in or that you prefer over others?
I don't think so. I think I enjoy the variety of being able to do whatever's given to me. Recently, I've done quite a lot of literary fiction, fantasy, magic realism, things around that.
Are there any types that you find boring or you don't like to work with?
I'm not so keen on horror. There's only so much gruesomeness I can take, but that's about it.
What is the best thing an author can do when he or she wants to contact you?
I think have a specific idea of what you want from me and have a realistic time frame for when you need that done. Also, word count.
What is the worst thing they could do when they contact you?
I think the thing that I come across most often is people assuming that I have no other work on and can instantly focus on their work all the time and have it done straight away. Which I can't. Like, it's okay to email and ask, but do plan ahead.
If I want to be your client, how far am I into the book, and what should I know about the book, and what should I have prepared before I contact you?
Well, it does depend what service you want, but ideally I'd say write a draft before you talk to an editor. If you're ready for it to be edited, then write a later draft, do a draft that you're happy with, and then ideally send it to beta readers first and get some more opinions on it before you send it to an editor. Yeah, I think the most important thing is for authors to read their own manuscript several times, not just get to the end, type the end, and feel like that's it, I'll send it off. Like, look at it, think about it, put it away, take it out, read it, think about it again. And then when you feel like you've done what you can to it, send it to me. But if you just want an opinion, if you're like near the end and you need a plot twist and you can't think of one, I'm happy to just have a chat about it.
So once somebody becomes your client, what does that process look like? Is there a back and forth to it, or is it I send you the manuscript, I get the manuscript back with a lot of marks on it? What is that process?
Yeah, generally, I do just receive a manuscript, mark it up, send it back. If it's just a proofread, it's simple, mark it up, send it back. If it's an edit, it's mark it up, and I create a separate document as well, which has all my feedback in detail and lots of suggestions of how it could be better. I know like some editors prefer to keep in touch with their authors while they're reading it, but I prefer to read the whole thing. So any thoughts I'm having, I have within the context of the whole novel and understanding the piece as a whole. So then I send it back, and that's really when the conversation begins. Like if people want feedback, if they want to discuss any changes they're going to make, if they want to change a bit and then have me read that again, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, now that you mentioned staying in touch, I can think of examples where I had an editor reading something. It's happened a couple of times where they're sending comments as they go, like emails, and there'll be a thing they'll say, oh, this is a problem, you need to fix this, and then the next email is, oh, never mind, I got to the part that explained the thing I thought was a mistake.
Exactly. That's what I like to avoid. Just read the whole thing, understand every decision in the context of where it's leading, and then tell the author what you think. Because that's what the reader's going to do. They're going to read the whole thing and form an opinion about it. I try and read like a reader as well as reading like an editor.
So, as you work with independent authors, do you see any common pitfalls that we authors should avoid?
Yeah, in terms of style, I'd say like telling rather than showing, by which I mean like too much obvious description rather than just demonstrating things, like showing character traits through an action or speech rather than just saying he was angry. Like tell me that he stormed in, tell me what he did angrily, sort of things like that. I think too much dialogue is something I feel a lot. And I love dialogue as long as it's helping the plot or helping character or just developing it in some way. I think something editors do is cut down work. Like you can have beautiful, beautiful sentences which are lovely, but aren't necessarily helping the novel as a whole. So I think maybe not getting too attached to those sentences or those bits of dialogue Another thing in terms of characterization, I've read some novels where the characters are more sort of stereotypes of the genre or aren't rounded enough for my liking. So it's giving every character a proper voice, sort of a credible backstory, either in your own head or on paper, and just understandable motivations for their actions.
Based on your experiences as an editor, what have you learned about writing?
I think the most important thing is that it's a process, that it takes time and it has many stages, and to not worry if the first draft is awful or if there are only a couple of bits in it that are worth saving, and that revisions are really important, but details are important as well. But that it's not enough just to have a good idea or a good plot, or to be good technically, or have a strong vocabulary. It's like sort of all those things together that make a good writer and make a good book. And I've learned that really good writing, the stuff that I read and I think, wow, that's amazing, always surprises me. It has something about it, about the ending usually, that I wasn't expecting, because I read a lot, I sort of come to know a lot of tropes. And when something really surprises me, that to me is good writing.
What do you wish more authors understood about the editorial process?
That it takes time, that I read every manuscript forwards and backwards, and then sometimes forwards again, and then and I'm making notes, and I'm thinking about the placement of every single word, and that takes longer than a normal reader would. But sometimes, like I said, deleting parts or paring it down is good for the novel as a whole, and your editor is only trying to make the book better overall. And then I wish more of us understood that it can be a positive experience. Like, some people are quite afraid of sending it off to the editor. They think they're going to get a whole load of criticism. They're going to be told everything that's wrong with it. I think a good editor is going to tell you what's right with it as well. And any criticism is going to be constructive. It's about making your work the best it can be. It's not about taking it apart or putting it down at all. It's a positive experience if it's done well.
Why should an author work with a professional editor?
I think an editor, particularly an editor that's trained, can physically see things that an author or a beta reader can't see because they're trained to. Giving professional and helpful advice to help get the manuscript up to a professional standard. We're objective, can see your piece as a whole in a way that's very hard for an author that's been absorbed in it for a very long time to see. Yeah, and that we're just there to enhance your book, to make it the best possible version of itself, which I think is worth doing.
How does an author go about finding the best editor for him or her?
I think one of the best things you can do is get recommendations, either from people you know in person or from the online community. I spend a lot of my time on Google+. There's also groups on Twitter and Facebook. Once you're on an editor's website, read their testimonials, look at books they've edited, maybe read them. And that works the other way around as well. If you're reading a really good self-published book, find out who edited it, write to that author. And just find someone you like the sound of, read their blogs, read what they've written, see if your ideas match.
For somebody who wants to know more about editing, what are some of the resources that you recommend? Like which style guides do you use, and dictionaries and all of that stuff?
Okay. I think my first recommendation is to buy the biggest dictionary you can find. It's so important.
So the actual physical size of the dictionary.
Yeah, the more words, the better. Bigger dictionary, more words. Same with the thesaurus as well. I have a little book that's the Oxford A to Z on grammar and punctuation, which is amazing. I use Ngrams all the time, Google Ngrams, for finding out if an expression's era appropriate if I'm working on a period piece.
What was the name of that again?
Ngrams, Google Ngrams. It's part of Google Books.
Okay.
So it searches all the books that Google scanned in on its corpus. So that's millions of books. And it looks for instances of that word with that spelling. So you can type in like 2 different variants of the spelling and it will tell you what's most popular in an era or in UK English or American English. And you can type in for example, a phrase that you're trying to see if someone would have said in the area that you're writing your book in. And then Ngrams will tell you if it's in any of the books of that era or how popular that phrase is.
So Ngram, Google Ngram.
Yeah.
Literally the letter N, G-R-A-M.
G-R-A-M.
I'd never heard of that.
Oh, wow. It's magnificent. Have a play. You'll love it.
Okay. Great.
The only other book I'd say in terms of the sort of literary side of editing and forming a novel is David Lodge's The Art of Fiction, which helps just tell you about the construction of books and literary devices, which I think are worth knowing about for writers.
For an author who wants to get his or her manuscript as clean as possible before investing in an editor, what are the practices that you recommend?
Okay.
Before contacting the editor?
Before getting in touch with me. There's a few things that I see a lot that I feel like people could sort out themselves if they have the time. One is check that you've spelt your character names consistently all the way through. I feel like all the time people spelt things like Anne with an E, without an E. Things like that I think you could sort out as a writer before you send it on. And so I know which one you mean and which one you want to call your character. Check that your chapters are numbered sequentially. I feel like all the time we've got 2 chapter 11s or something, which could be easily fixed. Missing full stops. That happens all the time. In the worst
How do you mean they just don't have the punctuation?
Yeah, just Word and programs like that can't see if you don't have a full stop at the end of your paragraph. That won't come up on spell check. So it's something to look out for. Check that you've stayed in the same tense and the same viewpoint consistently, unless you actually meant to change viewpoint. That happens, for example, if you started writing in third person and you've decided, I'll change it to first person, it'll be a better novel. But miss some things, like really do that carefully and recheck it. And then I'd say do use word spell check, even though it's not the world's most perfect tool. But use it properly. Don't just say accept to everything it suggests. Like read it, consider it, because it's only a computer and it may be introducing mistakes if you just put that way.
Right.
Yeah, it's not infallible. And the only other thing to do before you send it to me is just ask a trusted friend, family, beta readers, get someone else to read it, have a chat with someone about it, make sure that you're happy with it before you send it.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Eve. To make sure people can find you, so the website, which has your blog, is eveproofreads.com.
Yeah.
Like it sounds.
Yeah.
And I can see a Facebook link from here. Let's see, can people find your other contact?
Yeah. I'm Eve P on Google+, and I've only recently joined Twitter, where I'm at Eve Proofreads.
And on the contact page, it has your email address if people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
This has been DIY Author. Please visit us online at DIYauthor.com and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone.